In today's episode of Today in World War II, April 5th, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain announces that the German invasion in Western Europe will not be successful. The Japanese launch a major strike against Ceylon, which is now called Sri Lanka. The Allies launch Operation Flax in Tunisia. The U.S. and the RAF start coordinating round-the-clock raids against the oil refineries at Ploesti. And finally, the Ninth Army, U.S. Ninth Army, crosses the Visa River and begins a rapid advance to reach the Elbe River in Germany. Let's get started. Okay, so today on April 5th, 1940, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, who probably could go down in history as the worst, maybe one of the worst British prime ministers in their, like I said, in their history, announced that a potential German invasion of Western Europe would not be successful. Yeah. The same guy that in 1938 holds a piece of paper up at Munich and says that we have peace in our time, right? A little over a year later, Hitler invades Poland. Now he's saying that, German invasion of Western Europe won't go anywhere. Well, I'm sure the reason why is because the French and the British armies were not sitting around on their butts since September until the invasion started at the end of April. They didn't sit on their butts. They were training heavily. They were actively patrolling. They were launching spoiler attacks against the Germans, to keep them off guard. I'm sure all that stuff was happening. Surely they just weren't sitting there singing songs and, you know, laughing about the fact that this wasn't a real war, it was a phony war. Because that would never happen, right? By the way, sorry for calling all you people Shirley, my fault. On April 5th, 1942, the Japanese Kido Butai, which was the same carrier task force that attacked Pearl Harbor, and part of which knocked out all the remaining air assets that the Marines had on Wake Island, and also who attacked northern Australia recently and devastated Darwin and Brome. Well, instead of refitting and standing down for a while, they kept going. They decided to go after Sri Lanka, or Ceylon, as it was called then. And yes, again, nothing until Midway, nothing could stand against Kido Butte. It was just too powerful. And yeah, they devastated Ceylon. They devastated, Colombo. They sank the British cruisers Cornwall and Dorset. They sank one of the it didn't happen today, but they did sink they will sink a Royal Navy carrier, and the Royal Navy had to move its Indian Ocean base all the way to Kenya, right? A whole ocean away because they could no longer afford to have to man their naval base in Sri Lanka or at Ceylon because it was too vulnerable to their attack. So yes, it was great. But again, Japanese, not that I'm on your side. I didn't like you, right? No, don't want to think. But I just wondering, what are you doing? What were you thinking, right? You can't, men are not machines. And when tired men fight, they make mistakes. And we're going to see that happen in Midway in just a few months. But yeah, great victory. Good job. Strategically, it meant nothing. The Brits were not a threat to them anyway. All right, on April 5th, 1943, the Allies launched Operation Flax. That's where they would gather all of these flax things and turn them into linen. No, I'm sorry, that's a different Operation Flax. This was a concentrated effort to destroy the Axis ability to supply Tunisia by air because seaborne supply was pretty much done. And just gonna pat myself on the back here a little bit. We see how Malta is still a thorn in their side and will be their undoing. Of course, by this time you've got the Allied air forces that are there. They're also contributing, but for the most part, they would have been in Jerusalem and it would have captured the Middle East if it wasn't for Malta. Now, there was other reasons for that, but Malta ultimately was the one thing that kept them from supplying their forces in North Africa steadily enough and give them enough arms and gas and munitions to be able to break through. And it was always the supply thing that killed Rommel. And now, what's this mean? You got P-38s, you've got Spitfires, you've got, I don't know if they really had Hurricanes working yet. I mean, still, that was on, but you have P-40 fighters. Um, they had these constantly going after these Junkers transport planes, and they just shot them down you know, like uh, like the little ducks shooting in a shooting gallery, right? And it was very effective. And they pretty much isolated the Afrika Korps that was still left in Tunisia, and that would lead to its speedy destruction and surrender. And finally, no, not finally, got one more not to go after this. April 5th, 1944, the United States Air Force and the RAF started to do round-the-clock raids on the oil refineries at Ploesti, Romania. Ploesti was extremely well guarded. They had fighter landing strips all over the place, and boy, I tell you what, they went after them hard. Uh, Geographically speaking, Romania is in the Balkans. It's closer to Russia than it is, and we could strike at them. Well, initially, when we started trying to bomb Ploesti, we were bombing from North Africa. We were sending our B-24s. They were the only ones that had the range over the mountains in the Balkans, Yugoslavia, to Romania, and then get back through. And they were being attacked there and back. It was almost as brutal. In fact, in some ways, it may be more brutal than what the Eighth Air Force was suffering in over Germany. So they were very well defended, and they took a lot of losses. And it it was not that effective. They were still able to repair it, and the oil still flowed. The only way that Ploesti stopped sending oil to the German war machine was when the Soviets came in and actually physically captured it. But you're not going to sit around and just let the enemy do that. You had to try to interdict, and that's what they did. And this is what this was for. And finally, on April 5th, 1945, the United States Ninth Army crossed the Weser River in Germany and commenced a rapid advance to reach the Elbe River in Germany. That was the boundary that had been decided upon at Yalta, that this was going to be the furthermost that the Allies would have in their advance, that the Germans would have everything on their side of the Elbe, which included Berlin and what turned out to be East Germany. So that was again just as we go forward here the next few weeks, anything that has to do with the land war in Western Europe in 1945 is going to be the same theme. Is we're going to make rapid advances. We're going to capture hundreds of thousands of German soldiers, and pretty soon we're going to link up with the Soviets because there was no effective defense left there. Right now, the agenda for the Germans was they wanted to surrender to the Brits and to the Americans, preferably the Americans, because they were afraid the Brits would hand them over to the Soviets, and that happened a lot. But anyway, who cares? Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it, and I will see you tomorrow.